Hello, this is the NICU Lived Network, and we are your hosts. I'm Melinda.
I'm Nat.
And I'm Emma. We are all NICU mothers using our lived experience to partner with health professionals to impact research, advocacy, and clinical practice.
Each week we will bring you something new. It could be a topic highlight, the latest in research, a visit to a NICU, or ways in which you can use your lived experience within the NICU to impact change. We hope you enjoy this episode.
Well, hello. Very nice to see both of you. Hi, Nat. Hi, Em. And we missed you in Darwin.
I'm very jealous about not being in Darwin, I'm not going to lie. Even for 36 hours, I would have quite happily flown back. That would have been amazing.
It was such a big trip. I was exhausted when I got back.
I was exhausted for you, yeah.
Yeah.
Next time, Em, we're going to have a group catch-up.
Oh, absolutely.
Awesome. We need to plan that for sure. Well, I don't know if you guys know this, but this is actually our 11th episode.
Good heavens.
Yeah, I know. It's gone fast, huh?
Yeah.
From that little idea to what we've built. So I think that's fantastic, and we've got so much more to talk about, and we know that this is just going to keep growing, which is wonderful. So today we wanted to just have a chat. We're just talking off camera as well before we hit record about all the different aspects of being a consumer rep and what it can look like, what it's built up to for us, and even the different areas that we've been involved in and that we're passionate about. So it's really nice today that we can just, I guess, have a chat and take a little bit of a deeper delve into the work that we do and what that looks like, and sharing that with people. What do you think?
Absolutely. And I think it's really good to kind of show who we are and a bit about us as well, I think, really.
Yeah.
I think we were chatting, for those that are listening, I guess we were chatting before about how we're all in really different aspects and doing different things, but we've all kind of come together for that one cause. You know, we've all started doing this for a reason, but in different capacities. Like Melinda, you've obviously done this for a super long time and, you know, really involved in the research piece. Nat, you're also involved, you know, quite considerably on a day-to-day basis in the consumer rep piece. And then I work outside of this and then kind of jump in and work on different groups and different things like that. So I think it's really good to kind of chat through, you know, what we've been doing, how we've managed it, what kind of commitments, you know, we've all done together. So yeah, as you know, where do I start? Mel's got the most huge background in it. And Nat, it'd be really good as well, because I think a lot of people know you, Melinda, from the you know, from what you've done before and within that space, but Nat, you know, maybe not so much. So it's probably a good opportunity, and then I can maybe give my 2 cents about what I've been doing.
Sure. Well, I think, you know, very much I was inspired by Melinda in terms of what she was doing. But I think for a long time, you know, when the boys were little, I was I kind of always wanted to there was a yearning to kind of do more or do something to kind of contribute into the consumer space. But I think probably for the first 3 years of the boys' lives, kind of had my head above water. Like I just didn't really was very involved in the consumer space, kind of always looking and thinking, oh, it'd be really good to be able to be more involved, but just kind of like going, oh, this isn't the time right now. But I think eventually there was a point where when the boys were a little bit older and a little bit more well and stronger, that I was like, okay, it's been so many years now. I think I'm ready to kind of give back and become involved in that consumer space. And I kind of was glad that I was able to take that time to really think about it and then really dive in. And I think I've mentioned it in previous discussions, you know, been involved in like peer-to-peer work for, you know, and working closely with, you know, relevant perinatal, neonatal organizations. But I think I've kind of gone through this route where I've kind of really gone deep into the research space. So there were times when the boys were in NICU, and then also, you know, we spent a lot of time in pediatrics as well, where there were a lot of questions I asked about, you know, is this experience or this question unique to us? Or are there other parents who've had this issue? Or has anyone ever looked at this issue before? And for me, the way I've kind of thought, this, you know, how can I get these questions asked is going through a research pathway. So I'm actually going through uni to actually do a health research course to actually get those skills and be able to actually do papers on questions that I've pondered as as a parent when I was in the NICU. So that's kind of one, extreme pathway that's possible. But I really, really enjoyed it.
It's amazing. I think I love that you're doing that. And it's funny how you find your
Thank you.
pathways through. Because I think your boy's the same age as Alfie.
Yeah.
I was the same as you. First 3 years, it was buckle down, going.
Yeah.
You're going. I didn't even know what NICU was until I had Alfie. If I'm going to be brutally honest. And then you go through all that little journey, and then you're backwards and forwards in hospital, and same thing,
Yes.
right? And you don't you get through it, and then there's all these questions off the back of it going. Everyone's been amazing to me. How can I do something back? And I think it was on social media. I think I saw something for the Australian New Zealand neonatal network. So that's how I ended up falling into it, which is very different from my corporate job. So, So, and like Nat, I kind of found that niche, and I think the ability to give back has been amazing just from there. But also doing it here and there and jumping from, I work Monday to Friday. I'm a mum. I'm actually looking at doing studies, but I just need to find that little time to fall into that, just looking at counselling and things. And I think that, again, all stems off from being in hospital and things. So it's an interesting journey of going through it and how you can be involved as much or as little as you want to be.
What do you think drives that? Like, both of you have said exactly how I felt in terms of you go through the journey, and then it's once you come home and you have that extra, that time that you're at home, that there's something in you that says, I want to go back. And that, like, I know, say for me, it wasn't going to maybe make a huge difference in terms of my boys' journey and, obviously their NICU experience. But wanting to go back to give back, like, what do you think what is that?
I think it's knowing that you're not the only one that's going through it, I think, and being able to give back to other families that are going through, and your knowledge can help. But equally, like my son, it was 50-50 whether he'd make it a couple of points during it because various different issues. And I think for me, if it hadn't been for the research and everything else that's gone in there, he technically wouldn't be alive 20 years ago. So I think the ability, the more you find out about it, the more you've actually got an opportunity to influence and help with the research. That means that somebody else might not have the same journey that you might have, and you want your kids to survive, and you want to have them the best care. And and even I think even for me with NICU as well. So I only learned about fee care, which is your family integrated care post discharge, and probably a few years down the track. So I think I started doing this about 2017. So 17, 18, you start hearing about fee care and you're like, oh, I wish I'd had that. And I wish that I could have been more involved with my child. So the fact that you can do something so small but create such change, I think for me is probably why I'm involved in it. I think it's probably not very eloquently said right there, but I guess that's the fundamental reason that I do it.
Really, like for me, like it's really heartening to think, you go through such a traumatic experience, and rather than think, I never want to think about that part of my life again, I just want to move on, I want to shut that chapter, and, I'm out of NICU and I want to move forward. And maybe some parents do feel that way, but for a lot of parents to be able to say, no, I want to use that experience. And I think for me too, there was a part of it that it acknowledged what we went through, like to be able to give back. And it's only as time went on that I realized that when you give back, there's the payoff is there's a healing part of it that I can then, go through, because I was in so much shock and, how much hurt I was in and all of that kind of overwhelmment going through it, that when you give back, like it kind of gives a purpose to the journey that you went through and seeing those differences. So, I always find that fascinating that, people do want to come back to pay it forward. Like it's an immense amount of gratitude and all the different ways that you can do that, and that the door's open for us to be able to do that, which is amazing.
Yeah, that is amazing. And I think you said it really well, Em, in terms of, our input has the potential to have make a lot of positive change, like it, and that really excites me to think that, wow, that we can really do so much for other families who are going through something similar to what we went through. For example, I used to, go back into the NICU here in Darwin and visit families through that peer-to-peer support program. And over the years, you'd see things change for the better, and you go, oh, that's great, because I remember sitting in NICU and think, oh, I wish there was this or I wish there was that, and then you go back years later through these visits, which is a very privileged position I have, and you see that change has happened. You go, oh, that's great, and that excites me. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Often they don't necessarily have to be big things, like to make experiences better for families. For example, there's this great, fantastic board at Royal Darwin of all the different staff and their names, which is,
I saw that. The Superstar Wall. I know. Yeah. I thought that was fantastic. Because it's always nice to see all the babies that graduate, and I love seeing that. But to actually see the staff and they get the Superstar Wall, I thought that was pretty cool too.
Because I remember being Nick, and you're just so overwhelmed with names and people, and you don't know a position from, I don't know what registrars, but you just didn't, and just to be able to see everyone's faces and who their names are, and not have to worry about remembering everyone, which is great. And I was like, oh man, I'm so glad they've got that. I wish it was there when I was there. Just little things like that is pretty cool.
But yeah, I think if you can make somebody else's journey a bit easier, and that's for everything, right? So we're going through obviously the dyslexia piece with Alfie at the moment, and I'm realizing it's not until you get into that situation you realize some of the challenges, and if you don't have people advocating, nothing gets done. So I think having the ability to advocate or look at clinical practice improvement or anything like that is brilliant. And you feel like you're doing something so small, but it's actually the response from the medical professionals is actually huge, which surprises me. Sometimes I'm sitting there and I'm like, oh, how am I contributing? And you give a couple of bits and pieces of what you think, but the recognition you get back is really quite surprising. And even now I still sit there now like, oh, okay.
Have you got a specific example, like of a highlight of something?
Oh, I think because I think we talk. I mean, you girls know this. I hate presenting, right? And I've sat in the conference, the Australian New Zealand Network, and I think the first time I presented in front of I don't even know, it was a ridiculous amount of medical professionals, feeling like, I'm just a mum and I shouldn't be standing up here. And the feedback I got from just talking through the journey about Alfie and just for them, and the fact that we're wanting to be involved was so I'm English, right? We're quite stoic. We're not, we don't sit there getting all emotional all the time. But even I was like, wow, this is amazing. And then we've done a couple of workshops around family integrated care, and the questions you get asked and the genuine enthusiasm. And you're just like, oh, okay, so me just telling my story actually means a huge amount, and they're listening to those points and there's a genuine interest. So I always got told, you're never just a mum, because I said, oh, I'm just a mum, and they're all the medical professionals that are looking after these kids every day, and they're like, you're not just a mum, so I don't, I'm probably, again, it's like just that
integral part of the baby's team.
Basically. And even going through it, and they're like, I remember being in NICU and somebody said, and I'm like, why is this happening to me? And they were saying, because you were chosen to do it. So that baby's picked you because you're the one they know that will be there for your child. And I think it's almost like always been not picked, but to do this is also, the same kind of thing. You've almost going down that journey because you're the person that can help create change. So it always me, my little English bit, getting all emotional, but it's true, right? So,
what about you, Nat? Have you got a big standout highlight so far?
Well, actually, I'm just going to think of Em, and there's a story I heard of you in one of those forums. Was just like, because you think, you talk about our experience, but then also being in those forums and getting to work with other fantastic people like yourself, like. I learned a lot about Em's story, because I remember when I was in the NICU, one thing that I talked about was I found it struggled from the kind of moving from the neonatal intensive care to pediatrics, just that change in the level of care. Like it was something that kind of really I struggled with. And then, but then Em, you was talking about how, different levels of care or the different cultures in different hospitals, because you're in a bigger city, so you actually went to different hospitals for your son. And I was like, wow, that's actually, for me, that was really the value in that kind of consumer forum. It's not just to other professionals, but from consumer to professionals, but consumer to consumer, like actually being aware that that I hadn't contemplated that because I'm in a much more smaller place where it's just one hospital. It's just like, wow, that's pretty cool, and I've learned a lot from UM in terms of.
I've learned a lot from all. I think it's the same though, but it's like when you've got your girlfriends out and you're having a chat about everything, it's the same thing. If you share your experiences, whether it's with your friends or whether it's with medical professionals, it resonates. So I think it is that sharing your experiences makes a big difference, I think. And for me as well, it's quite cathartic. I can't even say the word cathartic. I think talking about it and sharing it and knowing you're not the only one that's going through it. So from a selfish perspective, it's really nice to share the story and talk to other people that understand it and know what you're talking about. So many good things about doing it. And I only do a pocket of it because, like I say, and it's you ladies know that I'm like, can you make it? And I'm like, I've got a meeting, but it works for when we can do it all, and when we can all get together. So this is fabulous tonight because we're all catching up, and it's good. So I'm already getting messages from work while I'm sitting on here, which is it's not little Teams message popping up while I'm chatting to you guys. So
And I think, Mel, one of the important things I've learned through all of this, and a credit to you, is that I'd quite articulated before, but I didn't realize there was a healing element to it until you actually said it. And I was like, actually, that's a really big driver for why I'm involved. Like, for me, it's your bang for your buck. Like, that's where you can, in terms of effort, because there's a ripple effect. The potential for a positive ripple effect is really big, but also for family units such as myself and my family, I think there's a really important healing quality to it, and being able to kind of really reflect and process what's happened by talking to other families who've had something similar. Not in it, kind of like an unintended consequence.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And if there's one thing that you guys would want to see moving forward, what would that look like?
I think more people involved, actually. I think for me, everyone thinks, oh, you're doing an amazing job doing that. Well, anyone can do it, right?
Yeah.
So the more people that get involved, I think for me, I'd like to see more parents getting involved. And even the ones I talk to, they're like, it's great. And I'm like, come and do it. Like, you don't feel stupid. You can find your own time to do it. So I think for me, more consumers, more work with the medical professionals as well. And I think that connection, I always talk about connection. I'm like this, but I think that connection for me is really what I'd like to see more of, I think. What about you,
Nat? 100% totally agree. It's just, if you're interested or thinking about it, strongly encourage anyone to just dip their toes, whether it could just be something really small, just to kind of get involved, because there are different ways, different levels that you can get involved. But I think the neonatal space can only benefit from more and more parents being involved. They need that diversity of voices and opinions and experiences. That's my key. It'd be just great to see the pool of families who've had that NICU experience grow.
Yeah. Well, that's what I'm really proud of with this platform, that we get to have these chats every week and keep expanding on it. And I remember when I was down in Penzance in Melbourne talking about introducing the concept, and really trying to find the right word to say, okay, we want to share, what's happening in this space and what families, whether it's parents who have gone through it or those who have themselves grown up as a prem or a sick baby and have gone through it. And I kept saying the word share, and then at one point I changed it to expose, and not in a negative way, but to really open that door to say, this is what's possible. This is the link that you can have to the journey, but to also making, that difference for others. And it can fall across so many different areas, being a voice and doing that. So week on week as we build, there's just excitement for me in terms of where this can go and how much we can continue to share. It's fantastic.
the parent piece, isn't it? Really, it's really funny when you go through your little journeys with your kids and you experience different pieces, and then you end up connecting on different areas, and then you're like, right, what can we do here? And it's like it's like a one voice. The more voices you've got, the more impact you can make.
Yes.
So
Absolutely.
We've all got little voices here and here, but we need that big voice. And I think that change, and it's amazing. It's still, I say this every time I'm on a video, it still amazes me just the how much they want, the hospitals and everybody want consumers involved and input, and the little tiny things that we do can create such change.
Yeah,
absolutely. I think that's perfect to end on that there. Excellent. Thank you, ladies. Definitely catch up in the next week.
Yeah. See you soon. Bye.
Bye.
That's a wrap on another episode of the NICU Live Network. Thanks for joining us today. To stay connected, please make sure you're following us on social media and have joined our Facebook group.
And if you found value in this episode, please share, like, or comment.
We'll see you on the next episode.